The arc from my welding torch casts shadows that dance across hull section 47. My hands are steady now. They weren't 3 months ago. And the electrode feeds through at exactly the rate I've learned to expect. 17 inches per minute. I know because I've measured my own work obsessively, the way you measure anything when you're trying to prove you belong somewhere you were never supposed to be. It's November 12th, 1943, 2:47 p.m. I'm standing on a platform 30 feet above the Richmond Shipyard floor, and the loudspeaker crackles to life with a sound that makes every welder on this hull stop mid-bead. Robert E. Peary. Last plate going in. 4 days, 15 hours, 30 minutes. My torch sputters. I steady it, complete the bead, but my mind is counting. 4 days, 15 hours, 30 minutes. From keel to launch. I've been here 3 months, and I still can't quite believe the numbers, even as I'm helping make them real. Below me, someone cheers. The sound echoes off steel that wasn't here 5 days ago. I pull up my hood, the auto-darkening kind that still feels like magic even after 90 days, and look down at the organized chaos that is Richmond Shipyard number 2. 14 ways, 14 ships in various states of completion. Ours is the fastest. 4 days, 15 hours, 30 minutes. My foreman told me last week that Germany needs 10 months to build a cargo ship. 300 days. I did the math in my head 3 times because I thought I'd misheard. We're doing it in 1/60th the time. 1/60th. The number sits in my stomach like something heavy. I can smell the ozone from 1,000 welding torches, the salt from the bay, the coffee from the thermos I'm not supposed to have up here. My lower back aches. It always aches after 6 hours on the hull. My right shoulder is tight from holding the torch at this angle. There's a spot on my neck where the leather collar doesn't quite meet my helmet, and it's been burned twice by spatter. These are the details I notice now. The small pains that mark the hours. Before this, I was a seamstress. Dresses, mostly. Some alterations. I worked alone in a shop on Cutting Boulevard, and the most complicated thing I built was a wedding gown with 47 buttons down the back. I counted those too. Now I build ships. I'm not supposed to be here. None of us are. The woman welding the seam 20 feet to my left was a bank teller. The man on the deck below was a grocer. The teenager on the scaffold above, she's 17, lied about her age, was in high school 6 months ago. We're building warships. We're building them faster than any shipyard in human history. We're doing it because someone decided that impossible just meant nobody had tried hard enough yet. The loudspeaker crackles again. All hands, Robert E. Peary, final assembly positions. I climb down, careful on the ladder. My legs know the rhythm now. Every third rung, shift weight, don't look down. 3 months ago, I was terrified of heights. Now I spend 8 hours a day suspended over nothing, welding seams that have to hold against the North Atlantic. As I reach the ground, I pass a bulletin board. Someone's pinned up a newspaper clipping. The headline reads, German Admiral Dönitz. American shipbuilding claims are propaganda. No nation can build cargo ships in less than 1 year. Underneath, someone has written in pencil, Come to Richmond, Carl. We'll show you. I don't know if I should laugh or feel sick. Probably both. I need to tell you how a seamstress ends up building warships because it matters. It matters to understanding what's happening here, what all of this means. August 3rd, 1943. That's the day I saw the poster. I was walking past the recruitment office on MacDonald Avenue, and there it was. Women wanted for war work, trained to be a welder, $1.20 per hour. I made 40 cents an hour at the dress shop, sometimes less when Mrs. Henderson decided the stitching wasn't quite right, which was often. But that's not why I stopped. I stopped because next to the poster was a photograph of a ship, a Liberty ship, and underneath it said, We're building one per day. Help us build 2. 1 per day. I stood there for 11 minutes. I know because the bank clock across the street changed from 3:17 to 3:28 while I was trying to make sense of those words. 1 cargo ship per day. It seemed like a typographical error. It had to be. I went inside. The recruiter was a woman, which surprised me. She wore a man's work shirt with the sleeves rolled up, and there was a burn scar on her left forearm that looked exactly like the shape a welding spatter makes when you're not careful. I would learn that shape intimately. How long does it take to learn? I asked. 2 weeks in the school, then you're on the ways. 2 weeks to learn to build ships. She smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. It was tired. 2 weeks to learn to weld. You don't build ships. You make 1 weld, then another, then another. You make the same weld 500 times a day until you can do it asleep. That's how we build ships in 2 weeks per person. The poster says 1 ship per day. The poster's outdated. We did 1 in 5 days last month. We're aiming for 4 this month. I must have looked skeptical because she stood up and pulled out a chart. Actual data, typed up, dated. July 1943, Richmond Shipyard number 2. Average time, keel to launch, 7 days, 6 hours. Fastest, SS Robert E. Peary. September 1942, 7 days, 12 hours. Current goal, 4 days. That's impossible. That's what the Germans think. That's what the Japanese think. That's what everybody thinks until they see it. She paused. You worked with your hands before? Seamstress. 6 years. Good hands. I held them out. Steady. Small scars from needles, nothing dramatic. Can you work 8-hour shifts? Can you climb? Can you handle heights? Can you follow instructions exactly? Can you do the same motion 500 times without getting sloppy? Yes. Then you can build ships. The welding school occupies a warehouse on the south side of the shipyard. I report on August 9th at 6 a.m., and there are 43 other women in my training cohort. We're not the only class. There are 3 other groups training simultaneously in different sections of the warehouse. Someone tells me they run classes 24 hours a day now. Train round the clock, build round the clock. Our instructor is a man named Jack Kowalski. He's maybe 45, with hands that are more scar tissue than skin, and eyes that have seen too many welds to count. He doesn't waste time on welcomes. 2 weeks, he says, that's what you've got. First week, you'll learn to strike an arc without blinding yourself. Second week, you'll learn to make a weld that won't kill sailors. Then you're on the ships. He holds up a piece of steel plate. This is 1/2-inch hull plating. By the end of week 2, you'll be able to weld 2 pieces of this together so well, I can't break the joint with a 20-pound hammer. If you can't do that, you don't go on the ways. Questions? A woman near the front raises her hand. How long does it normally take to train a welder? Normally, 4 years of apprenticeship. You've got 14 days. Next question? There are no more questions. Day 1 is safety. We learn about flash burn, which can blind you. We learn about spatter, which can burn through cotton and lodge in your skin. We learn about fumes, which can choke you if you're not careful. We learn about falling, which kills you most of the time from scaffold heights. You'll be working 30, 40, 50 feet up, Kowalski says. You'll be welding overhead. You'll be welding in positions where if you slip, you don't slip onto a platform, you slip into the bay. So we're going to teach you to be very, very careful. Day 2 is equipment. The welding torch, technically a stinger with an electrode holder, the ground clamp, the power supply, the helmet, the gloves, the leathers, the boots with steel toes that weigh 3 pounds each and make my feet ache by noon. Kowalski shows us how to strike an arc. Scratch it like a match, he says, demonstrating. The electrode tip touches the metal, drags, and suddenly there's a brilliant white point of light that makes my eyes water even through the dark lens. That's 6,500 degrees Fahrenheit at the arc point, he says. That's hotter than the surface of the sun. You're holding a tiny star in your hand. Respect it. We practice on scrap metal. Strike the arc. Hold it. Move it. My first attempt, I stick the electrode to the plate and can't get it free. My second attempt, I strike it too hard and the arc sputters out. My third attempt, I hold it too long in one place and burn a hole through the plate. By the end of day 2, my right arm is shaking from holding the torch steady. My neck is sunburned, well, flash burned, where the collar didn't protect me. My eyes feel like they're full of sand even though I wore the helmet. I go home to my boarding house and can barely lift my arms to wash my face. Day 3 is when I almost quit. We're learning to make a flat weld, the easiest position, they say, though nothing about this feels easy. I'm on my 14th practice piece, and every single weld has been garbage. Too cold, too hot, too fast, too slow. The beads look like something a child made with a melted crayon. Kowalski stops behind me. I can feel him watching. "What's wrong?" he asks. "I can't make it work." "You're thinking too much. This isn't sewing. You don't think about each stitch. You just flow. Feel the puddle. Feel the heat. Your hands know what to do if your brain will get out of the way." My hands made dresses. Your hands made 47 buttonholes in perfect spacing, right? Same thing. Different material. It's not the same thing at all. But I try what he's saying. I stop thinking about the motion and just move. Strike the arc. Let the puddle form. Feed the electrode. Move forward at the speed the metal tells you to move. And somehow, the bead comes out smooth. Not perfect, but smooth. "There," Kowalski says. "That's a weld. Do that 5,000 more times and you're a welder." By day 10, I can make a decent flat weld. By day 12, I can weld vertical. By day 14, I can do overhead without dropping spatter on myself more than twice per pass. On the morning of day 15, August 23rd, 1943, Kowalski lines us up for the final test. We each have to make 4 welds: flat, horizontal, vertical, overhead. We have 30 minutes. The welds have to be perfect enough to pass X-ray inspection. I make all 4. They're not beautiful, but they're strong. "Congratulations," Kowalski says. "You're welders now. Report to WWII tomorrow at 6 a.m. Try not to sink any ships. It's a joke. I think. I'm not entirely sure." August 24th, 1943, 5:47 a.m. I'm standing at the entrance to WWII, and I cannot comprehend what I'm looking at. The hull is 40 feet tall. I know this because someone told me, but my brain can't quite accept it. 40 feet of steel rising from the keel blocks, and it's only half finished. The scaffolding around it looks like a child's erector set, but massive, industrial, swarming with workers who look like ants from where I'm standing. There are lights everywhere, massive floods that turn night into day. The entire shipyard is lit up like a baseball stadium. I can see WWII to my left, WWII to my right. Each way has a ship in some stage of construction. WWII looks nearly done. The hull is painted. The superstructure is on. WWIII is just a keel and some ribs. WWII, mine, is in between. My foreman is a man named Dutch Schneider. He's short, broad, and has a voice that could cut through a hurricane. "You're the new girl." "Yes, sir." "Don't call me sir. I work for a living." "You ever been on a ship before?" "No. Ever been up a scaffold?" "In training, yes. Training scaffolds are 10 feet high. These go to 50. You okay with heights?" I have no idea if I'm okay with heights. "Yes," I say. "Good. Because you're working main deck longitudinals today, 40 feet up. You'll be welding the seams where the deck plates meet the hull structure. Think you can handle that?" "Yes," I say, because what else can I say? "Good. Jimmy will show you the ropes. Literally. Don't fall off. We haven't had a fatality in 6 days, and we'd like to keep the streak going. He says it like he's joking, but I'm not sure he is. Jimmy is a kid, 18 at most, who's been here for 2 months, which apparently makes him a veteran. He leads me to the scaffold system, which is basically a series of platforms and ladders bolted to the hull. You climb up, he says, find your station. That's your piece of the ship for today. You weld everything in that section. When you're done, you move to the next section. Don't work ahead of the sections marked in chalk. Don't work behind them, just your section. How do I know when I'm done? Inspector comes by. Checks your welds with a gauge. If they're good, he marks them off and you move on. If they're bad, you grind them out and do them again. Try not to have bad welds. What if? Just follow the chalk marks. Do what they say. Don't improvise. Don't think. Just weld. You'll be fine. I climb. The ladder is steel, vertical, with rungs every 12 inches. My welding kit is on my back. 20 pounds of torch, leads, rod holder, and personal tools. The climb takes 3 minutes, and by the time I reach my platform at 40 feet, my legs are burning and my heart is hammering. The platform is 6 feet long, 2 feet wide. There's a railing, thank God, but it's only waist high. I can see straight down to the shipyard floor where people look impossibly small. And then I see my work area. It's a seam where 2 hull plates meet. The plates are each 8 feet by 20 feet, and they've been tack welded in place. My job is to weld the entire seam, 20 feet long, with a continuous bead that will hold these plates together against the North Atlantic. I strike my first arc at 6:14 a.m. The weld is terrible. Too cold, too fast, too uneven. I can see it's wrong even as I'm making it. I stop, grind it out, start over. The second attempt is better. Not good, but better. I complete my first 20-foot seam at 8:32 a.m. 2 hours and 18 minutes for one weld. The inspector comes by at 8:45. He's an older man with a gauge that looks like something between a ruler and a magnifying glass. He examines my weld for 90 seconds without speaking. Acceptable, he finally says. He marks it with chalk. Next section is 12 feet forward. Get moving. That's it. No praise, no criticism, just acceptable and move on. I complete 3 more seams by lunch. By the end of my first day, I've made 7 welds, totaling 140 feet of welded seam. I climb down at 3 p.m. They're transitioning shifts, and my entire body is shaking. Dutch finds me at the bottom. How many sections? 7. Good. We need you at 9 per day by next week. You'll get there. Go home. Come back tomorrow. 9 per day. That's 180 feet of welding. I can barely feel my hands. It takes me 11 days to hit 9 sections per shift. It's not that I get faster at welding. Welding has its own pace, dictated by the metal and the heat and the physics of the puddle. What changes is everything else. I learn to climb without thinking. I learn to position myself so I'm not fighting gravity. I learn to read the metal and know what it needs before I strike the arc. By September 15th, I'm making my welds without conscious thought. My hands know what to do. Strike, establish puddle, feed rod, advance at 17 inches per minute, watch for undercut, adjust angle for overhead, compensate for wind on the exposed sections. It's a rhythm, like sewing was a rhythm, but louder and hotter and somehow more honest. I start noticing other things. The ship is growing beneath me, literally growing. Sections that were open ribs yesterday have hull plates today. Sections that were hull plates this morning have deck plates this afternoon. The superstructure, the part of the ship above the main deck, is built separately and then lifted into place with a crane that can hoist 300 tons. I watched this happen on September 18th. It takes 45 minutes to position the superstructure and weld it down. 45 minutes to add the entire house of a ship. The mathematics start becoming clear. We work 3 shifts, 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., 2 p.m. to 10 p.m., 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. The ship is never not being worked on. There are always torches burning, always hammers ringing, always cranes lifting. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There are approximately 2,000 workers per way. That's 2,000 people building one ship simultaneously. We're divided into teams: welders, riveters, pipe fitters, electricians, riggers, painters, inspectors. Everyone has a specific job. Nobody does anything that's not their job. The specialization is absolute. My job: I weld hull seams. That's it. I don't fit pipes. I don't run electrical. I don't paint. I weld hull seams, and I do it 9 times per shift. And each weld is between 12 and 20 feet long. And each weld has to be perfect, because if it fails, sailors die. I think about that sometimes, late at night when I can't sleep. My welds are holding back the Atlantic Ocean. My welds are what keeps men from drowning. I made those welds after an 8-hour shift when I was tired. I made them after climbing a 40-foot ladder. I made them in the wind, in the rain once, in conditions that would have seemed impossible 3 months ago. And they're good welds. I know they're good because the inspectors say so, and the inspectors are bastards who would fail their own mothers if the welds weren't perfect. On September 27th, Dutch pulls me aside during lunch break. "You're getting reassigned," he says. My stomach drops. Did I do something wrong? Opposite. You're too good for hull work. We're moving you to critical structures, engine mounts, propeller shaft housings, rudder pintles, the stuff that absolutely cannot fail. I've only been here 5 weeks. Yeah, and you're making perfect welds at 9 sections per shift. That puts you in the top 15%, so you're moving up. Report to WWII tomorrow. They're starting a new hull. What's different about WWII? They're trying for a 3-day build. Keel to launch in 72 hours. They need the best welders we have. 3 days. 72 hours. I've watched ships go from keel to launch in 7 days and thought it was impossible. Now they're trying to cut that in half. How? I ask. Dutch shrugs. More prefabrication, more automation, more welders, more of everything. The Germans build one cargo ship in 10 months. We're trying to build one in 3 days. You do the math on that. I do the math. It's 100 times faster. 100 times. Why? I ask. Because every day we shave off this build means another ship in the Atlantic, another ship carrying supplies, another ship the U-boats can't sink fast enough to matter. They're sinking them, 4, 5 ships a week sometimes. But we're building 7. We're building faster than they can sink them. That's why. WWII is different. The keel isn't just a keel, it's a pre-assembled keel structure that arrives on a truck, already welded, already inspected. We don't build it from individual pieces. We just lift it into place and bolt it down. The hull sections aren't individual plates. They're entire prefabricated assemblies. 20-foot sections of hull that include the plating, the framing, the stiffeners, everything. They arrive from the fabrication shop, get lifted by crane, get positioned, get welded at the joints. My job changes. Instead of welding 20-foot seams, I'm welding the joints where these massive assemblies meet. Each joint is maybe 3 feet long, but it's critical. These are the welds that hold the structural sections together. If they fail, the ship breaks apart. The first hull I work on, it doesn't have a name yet, just a hull number, 440, goes from keel laying to launch in 4 days, 11 hours. I'm there when they lay the keel. September 29th, 6:15 a.m. The keel structure is 60 feet long and weighs 48 tons. The crane lifts it from a transport truck, positions it over the keel blocks with a precision that seems impossible for something that massive, and lowers it into place. The entire operation takes 18 minutes. By 7 a.m., we're welding. By 9 a.m., the first hull sections are going on. By 6 p.m., 12 hours after keel laying, the ship has a complete bottom and most of both sides. By midnight, the main deck is on. I work the graveyard shift that night, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., and I watch the ship transform. When I arrive, it's a hull. When I leave, it's got the beginnings of a superstructure. 8 hours. From hull to nearly ship in 8 hours. On day 2, the engines go in. The propeller shaft, the rudder, the thousands of pipes that carry water, fuel, steam, air, the electrical systems, the communication systems. I'm not involved in most of this. My job is still welds, but I see it happening around me, and the speed is hypnotic. Nothing stops, nothing waits. There's a schedule painted on a board near the foreman's station, and every task has a time slot. Propeller shaft, 0800 to 1100. Rudder installation, 1100 to 1400. Engine mount welds, 1400 to 1700. We hit every slot. Nobody's late, nobody's behind. The ship grows according to plan. On day 3, they're painting. The hull is painted, the decks are painted, the superstructure is painted. Ship grey, they call it. It looks like primer to me, but apparently it's the real paint. They're painting a ship that isn't finished yet because there's no time to paint it after. On day 4, they're doing the final fittings. The lifeboats, the railings, the navigation equipment, the radios. 1,000 small details that turn a hull into a functional ship. I make my last weld at 2:37 p.m. on October 3rd. 4 days, 8 hours, 22 minutes after the keel was laid. The ship, SS Elizabeth Barrett Browning, they've named it, slides down the ways at 5 p.m. There's a ceremony, sort of. Someone breaks a bottle of champagne on the bow. A crowd cheers, but it's brief, perfunctory. There are 6 other ways, and they all have ships at various stages. We can't stop for celebration. There's another keel going down on way 3 tomorrow morning. I watch the Elizabeth Barrett Browning hit the water, and I don't know what I feel. Pride? Disbelief? Exhaustion? All I know is that 4 days ago, there was nothing where that ship is now. Just empty space on a keel block. And now, there's a 14,000-ton cargo ship floating in Richmond Harbour, ready to be fitted out, ready to sail to England or Africa or the Pacific, ready to carry 500 trucks or 300 jeeps or 10,000 tons of food. And we built it in 4 days. It's October 1943, and I've been at Richmond for 2 months. I've worked on 7 ships. I've made somewhere around 1,200 individual welds. My hands are calloused in places I didn't know could callous. My eyes have permanent squint lines from the torch glare. My back has adapted to 8 hours of bending, reaching, climbing. My arms can hold a torch steady for 6 hours without shaking. I'm a welder now. Actually, truly a welder. And I'm starting to understand what we're doing here. Really understand it. They post production numbers on a bulletin board near the main gate. I stop to read them every morning. The numbers are staggering. August 1943. 31 ships launched from Richmond Shipyards, September 1943. 37 ships launched, October 1943. Projected. 42 ships. That's Richmond alone. There are 18 shipyards on the west coast building Liberty ships. Dozens more on the east coast. They're all running similar numbers. Someone has pinned a newspaper article next to the production board. It's from a British paper, dated September 15th, 1943. The headline, American Production Miracle. U-boats cannot sink ships fast enough. The article includes an interview with a German naval officer captured in North Africa. He says, "We were told American industrial capacity was exaggerated. We were told the convoy system would fail. We were told the U-boats would strangle the Atlantic supply line. But for every ship we sink, 3 more arrive. It's like fighting the ocean. You cannot win against the ocean." I read that 3 times. For every ship we sink, 3 more arrive. I'm part of that. My welds are part of that. The ships I've built, the 7 ships I've put my literal hands on, my literal sweat into, are part of that mathematical equation that's breaking Germany's Atlantic strategy. There's another article, this one from October 1st. It's about U-boat losses. The numbers are climbing. In September 1943, the Allies sank 43 U-boats. The Germans built 27. They're losing boats faster than they can replace them. We're building ships faster than they can sink them. They're losing submarines faster than they can build them. The mathematics are inevitable. This is what I'm understanding. This isn't about heroism or strategy or brilliant tactics. This is about production. This is about the fact that we can train a seamstress to be a welder in 2 weeks, and that welder can help build a ship in 4 days. And that ship can carry more cargo than 10 German cargo ships, and we can do this 37 times a month from one shipyard. We're winning the war with arithmetic. November 8th, 1943. There's a meeting at 5:30 a.m. before shift starts. All the welders, all the riveters, all the key crew. The head of Richmond Shipyard No. 2, a man named Clay Bedford, stands on a makeshift platform and addresses us with a megaphone. "We're going for a record," he says. "Robert E. Peary, keel to launch in under 5 days. We think we can do it in 4. Hell, we think we can do it in 3. Who's with me?" There's a cheer. I cheer too, though I'm not entirely sure what I'm cheering for. Less sleep, more pressure, faster welding. "We start at 0600, Bedford says. "Keel drops at 0600 exactly. We launch on the 13th at 900. That gives us 4 days, 15 hours. But we're aiming for completion by midnight on the 12th. 4 days, 6 hours. That would be the fastest build time for any major ship in history." He pauses. The Germans are watching. The British are watching. The world is watching. Show them what American workers can do. The keel drops at 6 a.m. I know because there's a giant clock mounted on a scaffolding, and it starts counting up from 0 the moment the keel touches the blocks. I'm assigned to Way 2, the Peary, critical structure welding, engine mounts and shaft housings again. The most important welds, the ones that absolutely cannot fail. The pace is insane. Hull sections go on so fast I can barely track them. By 8 a.m., 2 hours in, we have a bottom. By noon, we have sides. By 4 p.m., we have a complete hull. 8 hours from keel to complete hull. I'm welding constantly. My station is the portside engine mount, where the massive diesel engines will bolt into the hull structure. There are 12 critical welds in this section, each one taking 20 to 30 minutes. I have to complete all 12 before the engines can be installed, and the engines are scheduled for installation at 8 p.m. I finish my last weld at 7:42 p.m., 18 minutes early. The inspector checks them at 7:55. He marks them all acceptable. At 8:03, the crane is lowering the first engine into place. I eat dinner, if you can call it that. It's a sandwich and coffee, on the scaffold at 8:30 p.m. Below me, I can see the second engine going in. Around me, other welders are sealing up the deck sections. Above me, the superstructure is being positioned. The ship is coming together like a puzzle, where all the pieces are pre-cut, and everyone knows exactly where they go. I work until 2 a.m., 20 hours straight, with 2 10-minute breaks. My hands are numb. My eyes feel like they're full of gravel. My back is a solid knot of pain, and the ship is 3/4 done. Day 2 is the mechanical systems. Pipes, wires, pumps, valves. I'm not involved in most of this, my critical welds are done. But I'm reassigned to detail work. Small welds, structural reinforcements, repairs to sections that didn't quite fit right. By end of day 2, 48 hours after keel laying, the ship has engines, has propulsion, has steering, has electrical systems. It's mechanically complete. It's not pretty, but it's functional. Day 3 is finishing. Painting, final fittings, safety equipment, lifeboats, everything that turns a mechanical shell into an actual ship that can carry cargo across an ocean. I watch them paint from my position on the scaffold. They're using spray guns, powered by compressed air, and they can paint the entire hull in 6 hours. 6 hours to paint 14,000 square feet of steel. The paint is barely dry before they're adding the next layer. Day 4 is final inspection and preparation for launch. I'm off the ship now, my work is done, but I stay to watch. You don't walk away from this, you don't miss the ending. November 12th, 2:47 p.m. The loudspeaker announcement that made me stop welding. Robert E. Peary, last plate going in. 4 days, 15 hours, 30 minutes. It's not the record we were aiming for, that was 4 days, 6 hours, but it's close. It's so close. And more importantly, it's real. I watched them seal that last plate. I watched the final welds. I watched the inspector check them and mark them acceptable. At 5:30 p.m., they slide the Robert E. Peary down the ways. 4 days, 15 hours, 30 minutes from keel to launch. An average of 1% of the ship per hour. Built by 2,000 workers who mostly didn't know how to build ships 3 months ago. I stand there watching it float, and I realize I'm crying. Not dramatic sobs, just tears running down my face that I don't bother wiping away. I'm too tired to be embarrassed. The woman next to me, I don't know her name, she's on the crane crew, says quietly, "We just built a ship in less than 5 days." I know. That's impossible. I know, but we did it anyway. Yeah, I say, we did. It's November 20th, 1943, and I'm having lunch in the shipyard cafeteria. The food is good, better than I can afford on my own, which is saying something given I'm making $1.20 an hour now. There's meatloaf today, real meat, mashed potatoes, green beans, coffee, all for 35 cents. A man sits down across from me. I don't know him. The shipyard employs 27,000 people. You can't know everyone. But he's wearing a supervisor badge, so I don't tell him to leave. "You worked on the Peary," he says. It's not a question. "Yes." "Engine mounts?" "Yes." He nods, takes a bite of meatloaf, chews thoughtfully. "You know what the Germans don't understand?" I wait. They think this is about ships. They think we're building ships faster than they can sink them, and that's the whole story. But that's not it. That's not what's happening here. What's happening here? He leans forward. We're building a system. The ships are just the output. The system is the miracle. I must look confused because he continues. The Germans, hell, everyone, they build ships the old way. You design a ship. You gather materials. You hire skilled craftsmen who've been training for years. You build the ship piece by piece, start to finish, one section at a time. It takes months because it's craft work. Every ship is a custom project. And we're different. We're completely different. We're not building ships. We're mass producing them, like Ford did with cars. You break the ship down into components. You have different teams build different components simultaneously. You standardize everything so every ship is identical. You train workers to do one specific task perfectly instead of trying to train them to do everything adequately. Then you assemble the components like a jigsaw puzzle. He gestures with his fork. That's why we can train a seamstress to be a welder in 2 weeks. Because you're not learning to build ships. You're learning to make one specific type of weld. That's it. You don't need to understand naval architecture. You don't need to understand propulsion systems. You just need to make one weld perfectly, over and over. So we're not really shipbuilders. No, you're assembly line workers. And that's not an insult. That's the genius of it. The Germans need master craftsmen who've been shipwrights for 20 years. We need welders who can follow instructions. We can train those in 2 weeks. We can scale that infinitely. I think about this. How many welders are there? At Richmond? About 8,000. Across all the Liberty shipyards? Maybe 60,000. Maybe more. All trained in 2 weeks to 6 weeks. All making perfect welds because they do the same weld every day. The Germans couldn't do this. The Germans don't think this way. They think in terms of craftsmanship, pride, tradition. They'd see this assembly line approach as beneath them, as cheap, as inferior. He smiles. And that's why they're losing. I write to my mother every week. She lives in Minnesota, and she doesn't understand what I do. I've tried to explain it. I work in a shipyard. I'm a welder. I build cargo ships. But I don't think she can picture it. How could she? I couldn't picture it before I was here. Tonight, November 28th, 1943. I'm trying to write another letter, and I can't figure out what to say. Dear Mother, I'm well. The weather here is nice. Warmer than Minnesota, even in November. Work is busy. I'm making good money. That's what I've written. 3 sentences that say nothing. What I want to write is, Mother, I helped build 7 ships, real ships, ships that can cross the ocean. I did this with my hands, hands that you taught to sew, and now they weld steel instead of fabric. I can make a weld that will hold back the Atlantic Ocean. I can look at a ship floating in the harbor and say, I built that. My welds are in that hull. We're building them so fast the Germans can't believe it. We're building them faster than they can sink them. We're building them with women who were secretaries and teachers and seamstresses. We're beating them with arithmetic and assembly lines and the fact that we can train anyone to do anything in 2 weeks if you break the task down small enough. I'm part of the most important industrial effort in human history. And I never wanted to be. I wanted to make dresses, but here I am, making ships, and Mother, I'm good at it. I'm so good at it, they put me on the critical structures team. They trust me with the welds that matter most. I'm not the same person who left Minnesota. I don't know if I can ever go back to sewing dresses. I don't know if I want to. But I don't write any of that. I write, work is busy. I'm making good money. I hope you're well. Because how do you explain to someone who's never seen a shipyard that you're helping win a war by making the same weld 500 times a day? How do you explain that you're not a hero? You're not doing anything dramatic. You're just one of 60,000 welders making one weld at a time. But collectively, together, you're building more ships than have ever been built in human history. You can't. So you write that work is busy and the weather is nice, and you sign your name, and you hope she understands that you're okay, even if she doesn't understand what you're doing. It's January 15th, 1944. I've been at Richmond for 5 months. I've worked on 17 ships. I've made somewhere around 3,000 welds. The numbers have become normal. That's what's strange. 4-day builds used to seem impossible. Now they're standard. We're averaging 6 days from keel to launch. But the fast ones, the record attempts, are hitting 4 days consistently. Last week, shipyard number 3 did one in 3 days, 18 hours. 3 days, 18 hours from keel to launch. For a 14,000-ton cargo ship. The Germans are still building theirs in 10 months. I'm doing the math constantly now. I can't help it. It's become automatic. German production, approximately 1 cargo ship per shipyard per 10 months. Richmond production, approximately 5 ships per way per month. We have 14 ways. That's 70 ships per month from Richmond alone. 70 ships per month from 1 shipyard. The Germans have, what? Maybe 10 major shipyards? If they're producing 1 ship per shipyard per 10 months, that's 1 ship per month, maybe 12 per year. We're producing 70 per month from 1 facility. The mathematics are absurd. They're so absurd I keep rechecking them, thinking I must have made an error. But the production boards don't lie. The launches don't lie. The ships floating in the harbour don't lie. I'm standing on the main floor, watching them lay a keel on Way 7, the way where I started, and I'm struck by how routine it's become. The crane lifts. The keel lowers. Workers swarm. Within 18 minutes they're welding. Nobody stops. Nobody marvels. It's just another day, another ship. A man stops next to me. I recognize him. He's one of the engineers, works in the planning office. I've seen him at the production board meetings. Crazy, isn't it? He says. What is? All of this. He gestures at the ways, at the ships, at the organized chaos of 27,000 workers building cargo ships. 2 years ago, this was a dirt lot. Now we're the largest shipyard in the world. Largest? By production, yes. Richmond Shipyards, all 4 yards combined, produce more tonnage than any other shipbuilding facility on Earth. More than any facility in history, actually. We're building ships at a rate that's never been achieved before. I let that sink in. How is that possible? Because it has to be. He pulls out a folded piece of paper from his pocket, unfolds it. It's covered in numbers. Look, U-boat kills, 1943. They sank 463 merchant ships. That's bad, that's real bad. But look at this. Allied production, 1943. We built 2,710 merchant ships. That's 6 times as many built as sunk. The ratio is getting better too. U-boat losses are climbing. They lost 237 boats in 1943. They're running out of experienced crews. Meanwhile, we're training new welders every 2 weeks. He refolded the paper. That's what's happening. We're trading time for volume. They're trying to fight a careful strategic war. We're drowning them in ships. Does it work? It's working. It's absolutely working. Every Liberty ship we build carries enough supplies to sustain 600 soldiers for a month. Every ship is thousands of trucks or planes or tanks that reach the front instead of sitting in American warehouses. The logistics win wars. The Germans know this. Hell, they pioneered modern logistics theory, but they can't keep up with American industrial production. They just can't. He walks away, and I'm left staring at that keel on Way 7, watching the first hull sections go on. 463 ships sunk. 2,710 ships built. We're building ships faster than they can sink them. They're losing submarines faster than they can build them. We're training welders faster than they can train U-boat crews. The mathematics are inevitable. It's February 3rd, 1944, and I'm in the shipyard medical station with a second-degree burn on my left forearm. Spatter caught me between the glove and the sleeve, burned through my shirt, and embedded in my skin. The nurse is cleaning it with something that hurts worse than the burn. "Third one this week," she says, not unkindly. "Sorry. Don't apologize to me. Apologize to your arm." She applies some kind of salve that smells like petroleum and wrapped it with gauze. "Keep it clean. Change the dressing twice a day. If it gets infected, you come back immediately. Will I be able to work?" "Can you hold a torch with your right hand?" "Yes." "Then you can work. Try to avoid burning the other arm." I go back to my shift. The burn throbs, but I can work through it. You work through a lot of things here. There are no heroes in shipbuilding. That's what I've learned. There are just people doing dangerous work for okay pay because it needs to be done. Sometimes you get burned. Sometimes you fall. We've had 3 deaths since I started, all from falls. Sometimes you get sick from the fumes. Sometimes you just get worn down by 8 hours a day, 6 days a week of hard physical labor. But you keep going, because for every ship we don't build, that's supplies that don't reach the front. That's soldiers who don't get fed, trucks that don't get delivered, ammunition that doesn't reach the batteries. The war doesn't wait for you to feel better. I think about quitting sometimes. Usually around 4 a.m. on a graveyard shift, when I've been welding for 6 hours and my entire body hurts, and I just want to go home and sleep for a week. I think about going back to Minnesota, back to the dress shop, back to making 40 cents an hour doing work that doesn't burn you or put you 40 feet in the air, or require you to make welds that sailors' lives depend on. But then I think about those numbers. 463 ships sunk, 2,710 ships built. I'm part of that equation. My welds are part of that math. And as much as this job hurts, as much as I'm tired, as much as I sometimes hate the torch and the spatter and the heights, I can't walk away from that equation. So I don't quit. I go back to my way, climb my scaffold, strike my arc, and make my welds, one after another. The same weld I've made 3,000 times. The same weld I'll make 3,000 more. Because the math only works if we keep building, March 1944. I've been at Richmond for 7 months. I'm eating lunch in the cafeteria. Meatloaf again. They do meatloaf every Thursday. And someone's left a newspaper on the table. It's the San Francisco Chronicle, dated March 8, 1944. The headline catches my eye. Allied shipping losses drop 60% in first quarter of 1944. I read the article while I eat. The numbers are striking. In January, February, and March of 1943, the Allies lost 267 merchant ships to U-boats. In the same period of 1944, they lost 96. The U-boats are losing. The Atlantic is opening up. The supply lines are holding. There's a quote from a Navy admiral. American industrial production has broken the back of the U-boat threat. We are now sinking submarines faster than Germany can build them, while simultaneously building ships faster than the submarines can sink them. The Battle of the Atlantic is effectively won. I read that sentence 3 times. The Battle of the Atlantic is effectively won. I've read about the Battle of the Atlantic. I know it's been going on since 1939. I know it's been brutal. Ships sinking, thousands of sailors dying, crucial supplies lost. I know it's been one of the most important theatres of the war. Because if the Atlantic supply line breaks, Britain starves and the war is lost. And they're saying we won it. Won it with ships. Won it with production. Won it with welders like me making the same weld over and over until the ships just keep coming and the Germans can't keep up. I look around the cafeteria. It's crowded. Maybe 300 workers eating lunch. Some are welders like me. Some are riveters, electricians, pipe fitters, crane operators, inspectors. Most are women. Most are young. Most had no experience in shipbuilding before 1942. And we won the Battle of the Atlantic. Not with destroyers hunting U-boats, though that helped. Not with depth charges and hedgehogs and radar, though those were crucial. We won it by building so many cargo ships that the Germans couldn't sink them fast enough. We won it with assembly lines and standardization, and the revolutionary idea that you can train a seamstress to be a welder in 2 weeks if you break the job down small enough. I finish my meatloaf. I drink my coffee. I go back to my WWII 5 this week, working on a ship that will be the 542nd Liberty ship built at Richmond. I climb my scaffold. I strike my arc. I make my weld. It's the same weld I've made 4,000 times, but now I understand what it means. Conclusion. What I carry. It's May 1944. I've been at Richmond for 9 months. I've worked on 27 ships. I'm climbing down from WWII 5 at the end of my shift, and I stop on the scaffold at about 20 feet up. From here, I can see the entire shipyard. All 14 ways, all 14 ships in various states of construction. The forest of cranes, the thousands of workers moving like blood cells through a massive organism. The lights that turn night into day so the work never stops.